cut off my long hair and my long beard in order to become leaner and also to improve my posture. Over the last few years, I was as high in body fat as I never was before, and simultaneously, despite me having improved my posture very well actually, with posture corrections, my posture again declined to a level where it impacts significantly parts of my life, such as strength training, which is then not properly done. I have a little bit of a theory on why this is. So let's say you have an image of yourself in your brain, and now I have an image of myself in my brain that is me being lean. But now me looking into the mirror is not this image, because I did have a long beard and I also did have long hair. So therefore this new image is kind of a different image. By then cutting off the long hair and the long beard, I am maybe trying to access this other image, this earlier image, these earlier versions of myself again. And therefore I am basically referencing a much larger database. This larger database is the database that includes all the different versions of me in different situations, but lean. So by basically switching these two, by now having shorter hair again and also having a shorter beard again, I have to look at myself in the mirror. I cannot hide parts of my face or my neck anymore. This also means I cannot hide my nerd neck anymore. If you have a bun in the back of your neck, exactly where your nerd neck is basically the worst, then the only thing you can do if you don't have this bun in the back of your head anymore is improve your posture and therefore get rid of this bump that otherwise would appear. The same is true for my neck. I did, over the last 2 years I would say, really neglect my neck training, and my neck is now kind of thin again compared to before, where it actually was a little bit thicker because I trained it. Another effect is the one that a beard hides your masseter muscles and your jawline and so on and so forth. So I also neglected facial training in the last weeks, months, because I just didn't necessarily see it. So in order to now use one of these laws of behavior change by James Clear, who wrote a book called Atomic Habits, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to implement one of these. So there are basically two rules of behavior change. The first one is make the things you don't want to do harder, and the second one is make the things you do want to do easier. Of course, this is the same principle, just reversed, but there is also another principle, even though it's not exactly like he mentioned it, the first rule and the second rule of behavior change. The third thing is make it obvious. And it is now obvious to me that if I look like this, that it is just much more obvious that I do have a nerd neck, because on camera, at least here, my head appears way larger compared to the rest of my body. So therefore, I cannot, and also because I'm seeing my neck constantly, I'm just constantly, whenever I see myself in the mirror, I'm nudged in order to adjust my posture, in this case my neck and not nerd posture ideally, to slightly improve it. So therefore I'm constantly nudging myself from different directions whenever I see myself. So therefore this self-correction algorithm that makes me see my posture again and again and again, but also makes me see my face again and again and again. And because I didn't have that much reference, I guess, built in my head of the mental image of myself, this also now means that I can compare the current version of myself to basically every version of myself that had the same height as me right now, because if I have the same height, then the only difference is either age or more or less fat or more or less muscle, or maybe some other distortion, like maybe you had an accident and or half of your face burned or things like these. Of course, these are also obvious changes, but luckily for me, I did not have one of these. And for this reason, I now am trying to access basically the nudges. I'm trying to access the older, much bigger database, because it was basically trained My brain trained itself over years with the mental model that I have in my head probably still was trained over years, whereas the one with the long beard and the long hair was only a short period of time, 1 to 2 years.